Hello! Trying another live stream here. This time I want to look at the song Changes by Tupac. This song, although it is old, it's from the 1990s, it is still very relevant today because it talks about police brutality, especially against black people, and about racism and inequality in general. So let's look at the song. I have the chords for you. Let me see. So the original song that this was sampled from is actually from Bruce Hornsby from 1986, I believe. It was a big hit, and Tupac sampled it and then added his own lyrics and his groove. The original version by Bruce Hornsby also talked about social inequality in general, but also about the civil rights movement and police, and racism. So Tupac took this and focused on what is very relevant today, on the racism and police brutality part, and also on gang warfare and that stuff. You probably know that Tupac himself was shot in 1996. Please correct me if I'm wrong here. So, an old song, but very relevant today. It starts like this. So that's also the verse. This thing continues throughout the entire song, essentially. Also, in the original song, is pretty repetitive in that, but then even more when you sample it. So what I want to focus on in this song is not so much about the content and the message and the lyrics, which is, as I said, still very relevant, because that problem that Bruce Hornsby described in the 80s and that Tupac then described in the 90s is still here in 2020 when I make this video. Black people are still attacked very brutally by the police, and there is a lot of racism. And before I start with the music theory, let me say that this song is, the original song is called The Way It Is. And the hook line is basically people saying, that's just the way it is. So like social inequality, racism, all this stuff, it's just the way it is. You cannot change. And that's also what they said before this, the civil rights movement. Before the Civil Rights Act, I believe. I'm from Europe, from Germany, not from the US, might not know the history as well. But people said it will never change. It's like this segregation thing would never change, but then it did. But we still have racism, and yeah, you cannot say that's just the way it is. You have to do something. And this song is very much about actively doing something instead of just standing by or saying we cannot change it. It's just the way it is. In fact, I think yesterday or 2 days ago, our president here in Germany, I live in Germany, he said we cannot allow racism in any country, in any society. And it's not enough to be against racism and just not be racist. That's not enough anymore. We have to be actively anti-racist. So we have to stand up, we have to do something, we have to speak up. And this is what this song is about. Because it's not just the way it is. You can change it. That's the hook line. When you listen to Bruce Hornsby, that's just the way it is. And at the end of the chorus it says, but don't you believe them? And that's, yes, don't believe them. It's not just the way it is. So, focusing on the music theory here is, I have 3 or 4 topics that I want to focus on. First is focusing a song on the subdominant. That last chord is the subdominant, and it's the focus, the center of attention. The whole song revolves around the subdominant. Could also call this Lydian if you wanted, but I prefer to call this, it's just focusing on the subdominant. It's in a major key, it's in G major, and it just focuses on the subdominant. You see the I got the chords, got that right here. These are the chords of the verse. So it's A minor, E minor, D major, C major, G, which is the tonic of in G major, but then immediately moves to D major and C major. And we end on that focus point with the subdominant of C major. I also noted the functions, the steps below, so that you can easily understand the reference to the tonic. And this is an interesting technique to focus a song on the subdominant, and I will talk a little bit about what the subdominant, what the qualities of a subdominant are, and of predominance in general. Talking about predominance, I also will use or explain a few phrases from functional harmony, because I think that's important and that can help you in your songwriting. And a subdominant is just a predominant, and that is a certain function in functional harmony. We will talk about that. Then I would like to talk about the second point is an ambiguity of key. Because although this song is in G major, the chorus, you might know the chorus from that song. So the chorus of that song is, you could argue that it's still in G major, but you could also see it as C major. And it hangs somewhere in between. And there's this nice ambiguity of key. You don't know, is it C or is it G? And that's, yeah. I don't know if Bruce Hornsby and then Tupac did that intentionally. It's not settled. Just like the racism, the problem of racism, it's not settled. It's somewhere in between two states. And it still needs energy to be pushed towards the other state, right? So maybe that's very thought out by Bruce Hornsby. Maybe it's just coincidence, or maybe it's just a good sense for harmony and music that they had when they were writing the song. The third thing I want to talk about is displacing the bar line, which is a technique you don't find that often in pop songs or in rap music. It's what you hear in the chorus. So that actually the chords don't land on the one of the bar. They land somewhere in between and kind of shift the bar line. So it seems that when that third chord hits the C, it seems like you are starting the next measure, but you don't. It's early. Here starts the next measure. So 1, 2, 3, 4 measure. Okay. So it's shifting the bar line. This is a technique that's usually more used in jazz, and especially in improvisation. For improvising, it's a great technique. It's more rare in pop songs, as far as I am aware of. If you know any pop songs shifting the bar line like that, please let me know in the comments so that I can take a look at them. And I'm sure there must be a few, but it's the exception, not the rule. Yeah, these are the three things. So subdominants, focusing on them, the ambiguity of key, and then shifting the bar line. Okay? Let's start. Let's look at it. So first, let me go through the verse chords here. The verse starts on the second, on the 2 chord. So that's the Dorian in G major. It's A minor. And then we move to chord on the 6th, which is E minor, then to 5, which is D, 4, 1. So that 5, 4, 1 is a cadence, but it's not what's that called? It's usually called an authentic cadence. Authentic cadence would be, that's an authentic cadence. It's pretty strong. And then there's a cadence that's not as strong, is, so authentic cadence is when you move from the dominant to the tonic. Dominant, tonic. And then there's the plagal cadence, which is not as strong, but also nice to know, is if you move from the subdominant to the tonic. Subdominant, tonic. Still satisfying in closing, but it's not as strong. And yes, moving from the subdominant, using plagal cadences is also a good thing in for your repertoire for your tools, how you write songs. Especially, it's not that strong. So if you don't want to have that strong pull in your music, you can use that. And this song has a lot of techniques of that. That it's kind of, you know, from the message of the song, it's kind of. It's not strong, it's not rage or anger, it's not angry about it, it's just, yeah, it's just, people are saying it's just the way it is, so it's nothing you can do, it's not changing, it always stays the same, so that's what the music conveys. Sadly. And you can do the same by using plagal cadences and by focusing on the subdominant. Because that whole progression, as I said, goes back to the subdominant and then stays there before it repeats. So it focuses, it lands on the subdominant, and the subdominant is such a nice chord because it's, just wondering if I should go into functional harmony already. But the subdominant is somewhere in between a tonic and a dominant. So a tonic is a place of rest, right? That's resolution, it's a happy ending, it's resolved, everything's fine. This is the happy world. And a dominant is tension, right? So if we do this, we want to resolve that. It's tense, we want to go somewhere, and we need that at the end. So a dominant is very tense, creating tension, and a tonic is at rest, it's the happy ending, everything is resolved. And a subdominant is right in between these two, right? So in functional harmony, you would say that a subdominant is resolving to a dominant. So it's leading to more tension. It's not that high tension already, but it's leading to higher tension, right? This is also why the plagal cadence is so interesting, because there the subdominant is not leading to higher tension. The subdominant is leading to the release of the tonic, to the resolution. And so the subdominant can be both. It can go both directions. It's a state in between. It's not settled, but it can also go to higher tension. Again, feel free to interpret this in terms of the lyrics of the song, as changes as well as the way it is. But that's a nice thing about the subdominant. So it's not settled, but it's also not high tension. It's in between and doesn't rest. And this is also what this song conveys. And what I also associate with the subdominant often is feeling of a melancholy feeling. Especially if you express the Lydian quality of it. A subdominant comes with the Lydian mode attached to it. So it would be, And that note, that sharp 11, is what makes it Lydian. And if you stretch this, the Lydian and the major 7, these two are the defining qualities of Lydian, then you really get into that area of that melancholy mood that's somewhere in between. It's not, I often associate that with, like, it's if a relationship ended and you're neither angry nor moving on to the next thing or something, but it's that space when you're just vegetating, you're just wasting time, spending time doing nothing, grieving, feeling blue. So that's what I associate with it. Might be different for you. So I like that Lydian quality. It's not emphasized that much in this song. I thought that machine audio interface would work, but it just frequently, I don't know, dies in the middle of doing something, in the middle of live streaming, I should say. It never died on me yet during recording or something. So it has something to do with the live streaming. I don't know, some internal power management. Okay, let's not rant. And yes, Native Instruments, if you see this, please contact me, help me solve this problem. So back. Now I gotta remember where we were. The ambiguity, or now the subdominant and the quality. So it's somewhere in between, the subdominant. It keeps it in between. It's not resolved, but it's not high tension. And that's exactly what this song conveys, musically and in the lyrics. Another part that I wanna stretch is we have that plagal cadence at the end. So that plagal cadence, it briefly hits the tonic, right? Before it moves right away. So it hits the tonic and then moves again and ends on the subdominant. So there's briefly that point of resolution on the tonic, but it's immediately, the song moves on. And so again, maybe that it's, yeah, we had the Civil Rights Act and all that, so there were times where things were getting better, but it's not resolved yet. And at the beginning of the chords, like that A minor and E minor, they also have functions. In functional harmony, you have 3 functions. You have the tonic, you have the predominant, and you have the dominant. So as is predominant already says it, predominant comes before the dominant, it resolves to the dominant, and the dominant resolves to the tonic. And the tonic is resolved and doesn't need to move anywhere. And every chord in a key has one of these functions, or many. Some have more than one function. And A minor, initially, is a predominant. That's a predominant function. If you know about relative keys, then the relative minor or relative major always has the same function in functional harmony. So if we have C as the on the 4th step, and we have C as the subdominant, then the relative minor of C is just a minor 3rd down. It's A minor, right? So A minor also has a subdominant function, or I should say it's a predominant function, because that's the right term. Right? On the 4 is the subdominant, but then on the 2 chord, oh, sorry, wrong key. On the 4 is the subdominant, and on the 2 is also a predominant function. Subdominant is just a special case of predominant. It's the predominant on the 4th step. So these have the same function, and you will experience that if you move from let's say the chord on the 4 to the chord on the 2 of the scale, it's not a strong move, right? It's almost the same chord, and that's because they play the same function. Or you could say because it's almost the same chord, they play the same function. It's either way, it's correct. So the A minor initially is a predominant. Then we move to it wants to resolve to the dominant. And then we move to E minor. E minor can play two functions, but in that instance I would argue that it's also a predominant function. If you have a different opinion, let me know. Chat with me here in the live stream or leave a comment. I think they are both predominant functions. And again, it's predominant because it's the Gegenklang of the subdominant. So again, C, we have the relative minor, and we have the Gegenklang, which is, and I call it countersound because I don't know the English name. If there is even an English term for that. In German, it's called Gegenklang. This is where this comes from, functional harmony. And it's just the chord a third up, right? A major third in that case, in major. And that can also substitute for that chord. So it's the same function. These three chords can all play the predominant function. All these chords can play the predominant function in G major. So I would say that this is a predominant function. Finally moving to the dominant where it wants to go. Moving to the subdominant, which is a little unexpected, and then to the tonic. So predominant to dominant. This is classical harmony. But then it's not resolving, or not resolving fully, right? With an authentic cadence back to the tonic, but it's resolving to the subdominant, which only resolves part of the tension. And then, so it's like not having tension in the dominant and then releasing that tension immediately, but it's having that tension, moving down a little bit and releasing the tension in steps. That's how you can see a plagal cadence. So it's predominant, dominant, predominant, tonic. That's what it does. And that E minor, like it delays the movement to the tonic, to the dominant, sorry. Because what we usually see in many songs is that we move from A minor directly to D major. And then to 1, which is called the 2-5-1 progression. Might have heard that. And this song is essentially a 2-5-1 progression, the verse, but with delayed resolutions. So no, not yet there, but now we're moving there. Okay, not yet to the tonic, but now. Okay, you could see it like that. That is a 2-5-1 progression with insertions. And then, of course, it moves on to the subdominant and stays there, which is not a unique move, but it's uncommon. Rather uncommon in pop music, I'd say. That might be all that I have to say about the subdominant, so the first topic that I wanted to focus on. Functional harmony is an interesting thing to learn for that, because knowing what a predominant, a dominant, and a tonic is, and finding these functions in the keys you're playing in, can help you go to the places where you want to go harmonically. And it also gives you options for substitutions, right? So if you know I have 3 chords that can play the role of the subdominant, then you can, yeah, you have a larger sonic palette that you can play from. So I would advise you to learn functional harmony. It's not necessary, but it helps you to come up with good progressions, to come up with options, and also to find these nice ambiguous chords that can place multiple functions, maybe even in multiple keys at the same time. And it's one chord, and you hear all these different functions at the same time. And this is what I want to focus on next. So it's the ambiguity of the key that we have in the chorus. Let me show the chords of the chorus first. I have to optimize these transitions somehow, but hey, bear with me. This is only my third live stream. This is the chorus. So if you only see these chords, if you only see the chorus, you might, I have written that stuff in the chords, and the second line is it written in G major? So in G major, the G would be the 1 chord, right? Then the F would be the flat 7 chord, and the C would be the 4, the subdominant. But I also wrote it in the third line in terms of C major. And if you didn't hear the verse before, you could believe that this is actually in the key of C major. Because why wouldn't it? Right? It's G, F, C. So it's the 3 basic chords we use in C major. Plagal cadence in C major. So you could see it either way, and that's the nice thing about that, because the verse is clearly in G major. So we hear that C as a subdominant, clearly. It's not the tonic. This is clearly in G major. But then the chorus starts on G, moves to a chord that's not part of G, because F major is not part of G major, right? G major would have an F sharp in it. And we are using F here. So it's a chord from a different key. So it's a little surprising. And then we move to a key that could still be G major. But that F in there kind of threw us off in a nice way. It makes the song great and interesting. And the nice thing about it is that F could be seen as a flat 7 chord, like as a backdoor dominant, actually. Then it, yeah, maybe check out my video on the backdoor progression. I got 2 videos, I believe, on the backdoor progression. If you're interested in what that is, how that works, I'm not gonna go into too much detail here, but the flat 7 is the backdoor dominant, so it's a substitution for the dominant chord, actually, in G. So it can act as a dominant. So that's one interpretation, then you would still be in G major. Okay, the interesting thing here is that it's not actually a dominant chord. It has a major 7 in it. So that's not typical for a dominant, and also not typical for a backdoor dominant, although you could play a major 7 chord as a backdoor. But yes, that's just more ambiguity here. So it could be G major, but it could also be C major, right? It could also be the dominant, subdominant, tonic, resolved, resolution here, at rest. Or it could be G, then it would be tonic, dominant, or substitute for the dominant, subdominant. And then it's still that subdominant quality that's not finally resolved. So it could be both. It could be G major and it could be C major. And if it's G major, then the C chord at the end would be a subdominant, unstable. If it's C major, then the C chord would be a tonic and very stable. And the nice thing is that the song keeps it ambiguous. So it's not that you hear it as either or, but you hear it as both, probably, even without noticing. So you hear it partly as a resolved tonic and partly as an unresolved subdominant. And that makes it nice. It gives a nice effect. And if you want to achieve that effect in your songs, it's important to find chords that are ambiguous. So chords that ambiguous chords is actually easy, because if you have a chord like G major, or yeah, let's take that C, a C chord, C major. C major can come from the key of C major. It's the one chord in C major. It can be the 4 chord in G major, like with the Lydian scale, that nice, right, Lydian. It could also be the dominant in F major, like Mixolydian. And that's about it in our traditional modes that we have, our major modes. There's each major chord can be part of 3 different keys, but that's already enough, because now you know if you play C major, no one's gonna know whether that's the key of C major, the key of F major, or the key of G major. You can clarify that, right? Like by adding a 2/5 progression before it, or any cadence before it. Now C is defined as a tonic chord, definitely. And if you add a different cadence before that, you can define C as a different chord. Like now it's clearly a dominant, wanting to resolve here in F. Yeah. And you don't always have to define it. That's the nice thing. You can keep it open. You can just come from F to C. And now no one's gonna really know, is that subdominant to tonic, or is that tonic to dominant? No, you can't tell, right? Different people with different backgrounds and different music listening history might interpret as one or the other, but still, you can still also for them make it ambiguous. It's so nice that you can keep it in the middle, and that makes the song interesting, because people in that case don't really know what key we are in. It's not the original key, it's not far away from it, but it's also not the original key. It's somehow right? And that's what makes songs interesting. If you always define the key clearly, that's possible, totally possible. But it can get boring depending on the message you want to send. And here clearly the message is that the world is hanging somewhere in between 2 keys, right? Between that key of segregation and racism, and between that key of equality, everyone is equal. And but even if it's not in the lyrics, it's just nice to have this little ambiguity, because it makes songs interesting. Use that. Pick chords that can be part of 2 keys, and then make it ambiguous, like it is done here with the F major chord thrown in. So it's just a brief moment, but it shows, hey, this might not be what you think it is. And you probably agree that it makes the song interesting. So that's ambiguity of the key. And the more you know about music theory, the easier it will be for you to create these feelings, these varieties, these shades of feelings that you have, right? It's not only happy major, sad minor, but there are so many shades we can create with music. And you don't only have to rely on lyrics to transport that. You can also create that in your music, and it will strengthen and support what the lyrics say. Or it can even contradict them, which then creates really interesting, it's real art that's then created. Like if the music is kind of commenting on the lyrics, that's great songwriting if you can get to that. So the last part I want to talk about, last point, is displacing the bar line. I said that initially. So displacing the bar line is what they do in the chorus. The chorus sample, I should say, in the version of Tupac. So it's really 3-3-2, right? You know that it's if you do that, it's like packs of 3, right? You're usually we're counting 2 or 4 beats at the same time. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Or if it would be 8th, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. But if you only change if you don't keep it even, like 2 or 4, but you have packs of 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Well, it's difficult to count that while playing. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's moving on the 4. Like that's done a lot in Latin music. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that 4 is so it's so defining for us for a start, the beginning of a bar, that we tend to associate the beginning of the next bar with that chord fall. But it falls on the 4, not on the 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. And that's called shifting the bar line. So your kind of the harmony hits sooner than you would expect by the beat and by the bar. And that's a nice technique to keep to make things interesting. Especially that 3-3-2 pattern, like dividing a bar not into 2-2-4 or 4-4, but into 3-3-2 is common and is effective. Many times it's used like 3-3-4 and then it starts on the next one of the bar, like this. But then you get an added effect if you then don't start on the 1 of the next bar. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that C hits a quarter note too early. And it tricks the listener a little, because then we tend to associate listening unconsciously, of course, or subconsciously. Unconscious, sorry. a German talking English here. So subconsciously we hear that one, but it's the 4 on which we hit it. So the next bar kind of feels like it's too long. I don't know if you hear that. It feels like it is just a quarter note too long. It's very long. Let's compare that to without shifting the bar line. See if I can do that. So rhythmically less interesting, but also the second bar doesn't sound as long. And shifting the bar line, like hitting the chord not on the 1, but on the 4, or 4 end, or 4 ender, or somewhere between the 4 and the 1, is a nice technique to extend the length of the next bar, to make a break there. I know that, or I love that when drummers do that. Like they play a fill, and the fill doesn't end on the 1, but it ends early, and that gives the next bar some. It has extra space. It's how should I describe that? Maybe you know Smooth Criminal by Michael Jackson. I love that because that hi-hat, that din 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 bow. This bound, this first chord doesn't hit on the 1. Because you might notice it's like you have some extra time before the next note then hits. And that's because it comes early, right? Down, so you have extra time, and that's a nice technique to create that effect. If you want that, to have some extra space or some extra oomph on something. And here it makes the next bar longer. So it's really waiting a long time. It's 1 quarter note longer. And use that effect in your songwriting. Use it strategically. Don't use it all the time, because if you shift bar lines too often, then people are not gonna know where you are. Then you're in the land of not pop music anymore, but jazz, and maybe not even jazz, but somewhere else. So still somehow define your frame. But use it strategically at certain places, and especially if you want to make a bar longer, like hit the chord a little early, or just try it. Try to hit the chord not on the 1, but on the 4 end, or the 4 before. That can make things interesting. So that was the third thing I wanted to talk about in this video. Let me see that I talked about all the stuff that I promised to you. So we talked about the subdominant and a song revolving around the subdominant, and that these songs are kind of hanging in between. They are not really resolved, but they are also not tense. It's some melancholy, moody feeling in between, or like here in this song, it's like a social thing that's not resolved. It's at kind of a felt equilibrium, so it wants to stay at that state. It's still settled, but it's not really settled. That's the magic of the subdominant that you can use here. Also talked a lot about the predominant function, which is associated with that from functional harmony, and also helps to explain why a subdominant, or any predominant for that matter, feels like that. Then we talked about the ambiguity of the key, like when the chorus hits. So clearly, so that's clearly G major, and then the chorus when it hits, it throws that F chord in there and creates some ambiguity between the key of C major and the key of G major, and that's on purpose. So you hear both keys at the same time. and it adds to that feeling of not really, we are not really, we haven't arrived anywhere, we're in between. And the last thing, third thing I talked about was displacing the bar line. Displacing the bar line is an effect you shouldn't overuse, but it can create extra space in the bar that follows, or in the bar you're using. So you can also push it back. But a very common thing is just to hit the chord earlier, like, you know, from syncopation. And you can also use that in soloing. It's a nice technique if you improvise. If the chords still move on the bar line, but you in your solos, you just start soloing on the scale of the next chord a quarter note or 2 quarter notes earlier. So that you theoretically you're playing wrong notes over the wrong chord, but it's an effect that's anticipating the next chord, and that's also giving you more space. And maybe if the band comes in with that, or the rest of the accompaniment, if you produce it yourself, you can create that extra space by even hitting the chords earlier in an improvisation. So displacing the bar line, great technique for songwriting, but also very commonly used in soloing. That's all for today I have to say about this song. I hope you enjoyed this live stream, despite the technical difficulty that I had in between. And I hope that the theory tricks, the music theory that I explained to you, and the songwriting and soloing tricks will help you to write better songs, to play better, to improve all that, and to have fun with it, and have fun understanding the music theory behind something like this. And yes, and for this song, let's hope that it doesn't take another 30 years, and in 30 years we can listen to that song and say, yes, it's finally settled. The matter of police brutality, of social inequality, of racism is finally settled. That would be great. Right now, this song is almost, it's 34 years old. And we still listen to it, and it sounds like it was made today. Yes. So please do something. Don't just be not racist, but be active anti-racist. That's it. Now take all these tools that I gave you, go out and make some awesome music. Thank you.